Southwest Florida. Welcome back to Lee Pitts Live on Fox 4. We're here at Mount Hermon Ministry, and we just got a chance to participate in the symposium for the ages as it relates to systemic racism and police department and the black church, the black community. So without further ado, I want to talk to one of our panelists who was just outstanding in both symposiums. Last symposium we had dealing with coronavirus and this symposium here as well. Be Dr. Phillips, and that'd be Agape. Agape, that's the way it's pronounced.
Agape.
I guess people be killing it, don't they?
That's fine.
All right. First of all, let's stay with agape for a minute. What does that mean?
Agape basically means God's unconditional love. That's
Okay.
basically, it's a Greek word for love, and there's 4 words in the Greek that defines love, and agape is the first one that talks about God's unconditional love.
When are your services?
Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. We're exclusively online now because of the uptick in the cases in Florida, so we're exclusively online, Facebook and YouTube.
Right, because you had come back in.
We did.
And then you went back out. Tell us about coming back in. Was everything safe? Did you have a pretty safe experience coming back in?
We did. We had a team that was mobilized to make sure we did all the CDC guidelines, checking temperatures, making sure people answered questions, social distancing. But what we found out was people were not as eager to come back as we thought because people are still a little apprehensive as far as what's going on. So we learned a few lessons in that, and we just decided as a team that we just need to shut it back down.
Okay. Tonight, symposium. Why don't you take time to describe what this symposium was in your eyesight?
Well, I think it was a great conversation starter, and I think it was a tangible proof that the clergy in Southwest Florida are not just interested in preaching the Bible, but we're interested in leading people to a better place as far as their everyday life. And so I think to have the panel that we had here tonight, it speaks volume to the leadership of Dr. Glover, who put this together, and it shows how people are willing to come together for something that is significant for the benefit of the community. Because oftentimes people say churches don't work together. That's not true. We saw that both in the coronavirus and also in this symposium.
And when you look at that panel that was up there, and I had the great fortune of being the moderator, when you look at that panel up there, it was a really great panel of all various perspectives. And one of the things that came out to me is that everybody was eager to share their viewpoint. There was no holding back.
Absolutely, and I think this panel kind of encompassed the major institutions of any civilization, which is family, government, education, and the church. And so you had that on the stage here, which really helps us understand that at the end of the day, regardless of what titles that we hold, regardless of what office we're in, we are all working for one common cause, and that is the betterment of humanity. Whether it's law enforcement doing their job, whether it's the church providing hope and direction, whether it's the state attorney's office or politicians, we're dealing with human beings.
Mm-hmm. Now we know Pastor Glover from we being, the average citizens who's not a member of his church and who's not in the clergy who interfaces with Mount Hermon. From that perspective, you know him from a deeper perspective as a brother in the ministry. He has a lot of passion around these types of topics. And it seems like when he calls on people like yourself to come and be a part of it, you guys really are eager to be a part of moving the pendulum forward.
Well, I think it speaks to his credibility and his conviction. People are drawn to credible people and people with great conviction. And so when he gives a phone call or text, it's without resistance because of his track record of being a voice in the community, of being a Moses, to help us understand that this is the time that God has raised him up for such a time as this. And we're just partnering with him to make sure that we hold his ladder to make sure that we achieve the goal, which is to see our community change.
And I just like how organized he is. It's just so detailed. It's just he's worse than me.
Well, that's leadership.
I don't mean worse in a bad way. I mean I'm the same way, and I just like working with a person like that.
Yeah.
What do you hope that people took from tonight's discussion?
Well, what I hope they took 2 things. Number one, that they have leaders who are willing to fight for them. That's the first thing. The second thing is that understand that all hope is not lost. because as long as there's a voice in the wilderness crying out, people know that their lives can be better tomorrow. We may not change it overnight, but I think if we engage in a process and let people know that we're committed for the long haul, and like Dr. Martin Luther King did, he started it, and we're just continuing in a different era doing the same work, which is lifting up humanity to a better place.
One of the things that you brought up tonight was how you go about, even in these types of times, encouraging people in the church and outside of the church to keep the faith, that there's a better day. You shared that up there, but I want you to share it with our television audience.
Well, I've always said hope is the oxygen that brings us to tomorrow, right? And so if we can give people hope and let them know that it's not just a theory, but it's actually tangible, it's reachable, I think people can begin to understand that even though things are hard right now, but there are leaders who are concerned enough to get out there and to fight. And so I'd say to anybody who's watching tonight, we can't allow the moment to cause us to abort the process. And so we have to keep going until we see change. And it may not happen in our generation, but at least we'll set up the next generation.
When you hear Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace, all those types of things, how does it resonate with you?
Oh, I think it resonates very powerfully, especially as a black man, as someone who came to this country from another African-American country, which is the Bahamas. It resonates with me because I understand the systemic injustices. I had to deal with this in the Bahamas with people who were of a different ethnicity, but they were still Bahamians, and they treated the black Bahamians differently. So I understand this all too well. And I think it's important that we keep that trumpet, keep beating that drum that Black Lives Matter, because until Black Lives Matter, all lives don't matter.
I see. Where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, we have to educate ourselves on the issues. There's nothing worse than an uneducated people who are angry. I think it begins with education, it begins with empowerment, and it begins with engagement. So I think we have to vote. That is the biggest weapon that we have, is our vote. And then we have to be educated on the issues to understand that when we speak, we're not speaking from a place of ignorance, but a place of education.
Your church, Agape, voting. Is there a culture of voting there? If not, what are you doing to improve that culture?
Oh, there is a culture of voting. I speak to that all the time. I think we've been used as a voting precinct in the past. So I encourage people to vote. What I always say is God doesn't ride the back of donkeys or elephants. He's an independent. And you look at the issues and you decide what side you fall on. But make sure that we vote, especially in this election. This is one of the most critical elections of our lifetime. And we cannot afford to be passive and to be dismissive of the implications of this election. So anyone who's watching, I encourage you, whether you have to stand in the rain, long line, don't let voter suppression stop you from going out to vote. Vote to make sure that we change our community.
What do you have to say to Mount Hermon Ministries and all the other people who were involved in putting together such a magnificent symposium?
Well, Dr. Glover is a man that I've learned to respect over the years of being in this community, and they always do things with excellence, and they're always putting forth the community. So I commend the entire staff. He and First Lady Cheryl, we've developed a very good relationship. As a matter of fact, he's preaching for us at our conference this weekend, and so we just have
local?
Yes.
Go ahead and plug that.
That's this weekend, this Thursday and Friday. We have our 19th anniversary celebration since we started the church in 2001.
Open to the public?
Yes. It's going to be virtual. It's all virtual.
Right.
Virtual on Facebook and on YouTube. And Dr. Glover will be speaking for us tomorrow night on taking it to the next level. So I'm expecting the house to come down. Even though there's nobody's going to be in the house, but we know that the virtual house will come down.
I want you to take 30 minutes, look into that camera, and just say something to our viewers about the way forward.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Pitts for being a voice in this community, and I want to say to everyone who's watching, we have a collective responsibility to do things the right way and to make sure that we are always fighting for a better tomorrow, because our children depend on it. The next generation is counting on us. We have to pay it forward. And so I would encourage everyone, get engaged, get involved, don't be passive, and remember that with God on our side, we cannot lose, because he has an undefeated record.
social media handshake. I mean,
Social distance.
social distancing handshake. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we will have other events coming in the future. Stay tuned to Leap Is Live on Fox 4. Be sure to go to the website for Agape, Mount Hermon Ministries, the YouTube channel. I would think that Agape has a YouTube channel.
Yes, we do. They can find us on Agape, acfconnect.org. All of our social media is there.
Okay. As the saying goes on this particular show, for those who say it can't be done, shout out to my buddy Martin Bird on the camera. For those who say it can't be done, they're usually interrupted by those like all the fine people here at Mount Hermon Ministries and all the participants in the panel discussion tonight that was riveting who are doing it. We'll see you next time on Leap Is Live.